You know, um, you know that feeling when you're sitting completely alone in a quiet room?
Yeah, like late at night.
Exactly. Late at night, you're just reading a book and suddenly, like the hair on the back of your arm stands straight up,
Even though you haven't heard a single thing?
right? You haven't heard a door open, you haven't seen a shadow move in the corner of your eye or anything, but your nervous system is absolutely convinced that you are no longer alone.
You're sensing an invisible presence.
Yes. Welcome to the deep dive. Because that exact feeling, that phantom instinctual dread, is exactly what we are chasing today.
It really is.
We are exploring this massive 3-hour, 27-minute, and 37-second psychological thriller soundscape called She Who Draws Near.
And honestly, looking at this purely as a piece of music just doesn't do it justice. We are approaching this project today as a neurological deconstruction.
Right, because it's not normal music.
No, not at all. This dark, ambient, minimalist soundscape is essentially an exercise in extreme acoustic engineering. It's designed to literally hack the human nervous system.
Which is terrifying.
It is. The entire architecture of the project is built around a singular, invisible mathematical pulse. And our mission today is to pull back the curtain on how that unseen pulse creates this deeply unsettling feeling of being perpetually stalked.
Okay, so to understand why a piece of audio can make you feel physically unsafe in your own home, we have to start with the spine buried beneath the music.
The foundational layer.
Yeah. We're dealing with a sound that doesn't actually exist in the physical world. It's the anatomy of a phantom rhythm, a phenomenon known as binaural beats.
And the history behind this acoustic illusion is remarkably rich. I mean, it often surprises people who assume binaural beats are some, modern digital invention.
Because they sound so futuristic.
Right. But the phenomenon was actually first documented way back in 1839 by a Prussian physicist named Heinrich Wilhelm Dove.
Okay, 1839 is such a fascinating timestamp for this because they obviously didn't have digital synthesizers or stereo headphones back then.
Not at all.
So he had to rely on purely acoustic methods. He was using these heavy, specialized tuning forks and routing the sound through separate physical tubes just to isolate the frequencies for each individual ear.
Which was an incredibly painstaking process. But Dove noticed something amazing. When two slightly different sustained tones are delivered completely separately, like one tone isolated to the left ear and a slightly different one to the right ear, the human brain basically gets confused.
It tries to do the math.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The auditory cortex attempts to reconcile the mathematical difference between those two distinct tones. And in doing so, your brain actually generates a third, entirely new rhythmic pulse.
Oh, wow.
But that pulse isn't vibrating the air in the room. It's born entirely inside the listener's head. It's a phantom rhythm synthesized by your own nervous system.
So basically, your brain is doing automatic math to create a ghost frequency.
That is exactly what is happening.
I was like, okay, let's unpack this. It's kind of like an auditory version of those 3D Magic Eye posters from the 90s.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right, where crossing your eyes reveals a hidden image, but here, you're crossing your ears, so to speak.
Yeah, and for a long time, this illusion just remained a bit of a niche scientific curiosity. It wasn't until a biophysicist named Gerald Oster published a landmark article in Scientific American in 1973 that it really exploded.
Ah.
Oster's research suggested that these mathematical differences didn't just create an audio illusion, they could potentially entrain actual brainwave activity.
Meaning they could pull the listener into states of deep relaxation or focus or internal attention.
Precisely. Oster provided the neurological framework that projects like She Who Draws Near rely on today. And the creator of this specific soundscape was incredibly precise with their acoustic math.
Let's talk about the specs of that because it's wild.
So in the left ear channel, the audio plays a pure continuous sine wave tuned exactly to 63 hertz.
Okay, 63 hertz on the left.
And in the right ear channel, there's a second pure sine wave tuned exactly to 70 hertz.
So the brain takes that 70 hertz signal and the 63 hertz signal does the subconscious subtraction and hallucinates a steady rhythmic pulse beating at exactly 7 hertz.
You've got it. And the use of pure sine waves here is a vital engineering choice.
Right, because if you were to use, say, a piano or a cello to play those two frequencies,
You would completely ruin the illusion.
because you generate overtones, right? Those
Mhm.
secondary higher frequencies that ring out above the fundamental note.
Exactly. Overtones would just clutter the math. A pure sine wave lacks any harmonic overtones whatsoever. It offers absolute sterile mathematical simplicity.
Keeping it mathematically clean.
Yeah. By using sine waves, the creator ensures that the rhythmic beating effect you feel is generated entirely by the frequency interaction. It's free from any tonal coloration.
And they really committed to that hygiene, didn't they? I mean, recording the whole project at 44,100 hertz in 24-bit audio resolution.
Yes.
With the 63 hertz tone panned hard left and the 70 hertz tone panned hard right. Just perfectly clean digital audio.
No digital artifacts, just pure frequency.
But so, if we have this perfectly sterile digital environment, and we can force the brain to hallucinate literally any frequency based on the math, like a 2 hertz difference or a 40 hertz difference, why engineer this phantom beat to hit exactly 7 hertz?
Well, that specific frequency is the key to the entire psychological shift. 7 hertz isn't just an arbitrary number they pulled out of thin air. It sits right at the upper boundary of the human brain's natural theta band.
Okay, so we all know the basics of brain waves, right? Like alpha waves are what you produce when you're relaxed but awake.
Right.
And delta waves carry that heavy, slow gravity of deep, dreamless sleep. But you're saying 7 hertz puts us on the bleeding edge of theta.
Yes, and theta is a really fascinating liminal space. I like to describe it as the doorway half open.
The doorway half open. I like that.
In neuroscience, the theta band is consistently associated with hypnagogic states.
Yeah.
You know, that highly suggestible window right before you fall asleep?
Oh, well, you might experience vivid imagery or like those sudden floating sensations.
Yeah. Exactly. It governs memory formation and states of heightened inward awareness. So, for a psychological thriller soundscape built entirely on tension, 7 hertz is the absolute sweet spot.
Because it drags you deep enough to lower your waking defenses.
Right.
But it sustains this undeniable anticipation.
Right. It prevents you from ever fully relaxing into delta wave sleep. It keeps you suspended in a state of watchful vulnerability.
Wow.
And when listeners are exposed to that 7 hertz phantom pulse, the physical sensations they report are profound. They describe a growing, inescapable sense of immersion.
Like the room is getting larger.
Yes, as if the sound field has suddenly expanded in physical depth. It creates a narrowing of focus accompanied by a profound feeling of anticipation.
Yeah.
But I do think it's crucial to clarify how this mechanism functions.
Sure.
Binaural beats are not mind control. They don't force a psychological state upon a resistant listener.
So they act more like an environmental cue than a direct override.
Precisely. They act like a dim light in a shadowy room. The dim light itself doesn't force you to feel fear, but it inherently encourages your eyes to search the corners more carefully.
Looking for threats.
Yeah. The 7 hertz pulse simply primes the neurological canvas. It invites your own perception to shift into a state of hypervigilance.
See, here's where my skepticism kicks in, though.
Okay, wait on me.
Going through the technical liner notes from the source material, the creator openly admits that this 7 hertz signal is buried incredibly low in the mix.
Very low.
It sits all the way down at negative 34 decibels. I mean, that is a whisper. It's so quiet that they deliberately fade it in over the first 30 seconds and fade it out over the last 30 seconds just to ensure there are no abrupt acoustic edges.
Right, so you don't notice it arriving.
Exactly. So I have to push back here. If this invisible pulse is barely perceptible to the human ear, is it really shaping our emotional weather? Or is the listener just getting spooked by the creepy music layered on top?
That is a great question, but that skepticism points directly to the most insidious part of the sound design. Making the pulse barely audible is actually the entire point.
Wait, really?
Yes, it's a matter of evolutionary biology. If you hear a loud, aggressive, scary noise, your conscious brain immediately evaluates it. Your cerebral cortex says, oh, that's just Lada's sound effect in a song. I am safe.
Okay, that makes sense.
But by burying that 7 hertz pulse at negative 34 decibels, it slips completely beneath the threshold of your conscious awareness.
Oh, wow. So the conscious brain ignores it as background noise, but the nervous system still registers the shift.
Exactly. The amygdala feels the shift in the environment without the cortex filtering it out first. Because you cannot consciously identify the source of the dread, your brain concludes that the threat must be real.
Like it's an organic environmental danger rather than a piece of media. It completely bypasses your critical thinking.
It really does. But to your earlier point about the music itself, that lowered defense mechanism is only the first step.
The found?
Right. Once the 7 hertz pulse opens the subconscious doorway, the creator feeds a monstrous musical architecture right through it.
Yeah, let's talk about that architecture. Because if the invisible pulse acts as a skeleton key to leave us vulnerable, what exactly is coming through the
There's
door?
something very, very heavy.
The dark ambient elements layered on top are engineered to create this sense of impending, unresolved arrival. And it starts with the low end. The creator specifically calls it Mariana's Trench Bass.
Which perfectly captures the physical weight of what they're doing. In
Yeah.
standard audio production, the typical lower limit for bass is around 20 hertz.
Right.
Anything lower is generally considered a tactile sensation rather than an auditory one. Frankly, most consumer headphones can't even reproduce it.
But for She Who Draws Near, they push the absolute limit down to an extreme 10 hertz.
Yes.
10 hertz is subarctic. That is deep ocean pressure. And a funny note from the sources, they literally warn that if you play this on a massive active subwoofer, you'll terrify the neighborhood pets and probably get a visit from law enforcement.
I wouldn't doubt it. And to make a 10 hertz frequency work in a mix without turning everything into muddy garbage, you have to manage the headroom perfectly.
Yeah, the liner notes mention the album is normalized at -1 decibel.
Which is crucial.
For those unfamiliar with digital audio, 0 decibels isn't silence, it's the absolute ceiling. Anything pushed above 0 digitally clips and distorts.
So by capping the entire mix at -1, they preserve the vital footroom necessary for these massive sub-bass waves to roll through cleanly.
It's meticulous engineering. It allows that 10 hertz wave to act as a physical force in the room.
And this physical force is paired with a highly specific, minimalist arrangement. The tempo of the entire soundscape drags at this sluggish 70 to 80 beats per minute.
Which mirrors a slightly elevated resting heart rate. It's literally the tempo of nervous waiting.
Yes. And harmonically, the composition relies heavily on extreme dissonance. It utilizes minor seconds and tritones.
Oh, the tritone is the crucial element there. Historically, the tritone is known as the devil's interval.
It is.
It was literally banned in certain forms of Renaissance choral music because it sounds so inherently wrong and unstable to the human ear.
It's a pair of notes sitting exactly halfway across the octave from each other, and they just clash violently.
Right. When you hear a tritone, your brain desperately waits for it to resolve into a comfortable major chord, or even a sad minor chord. But in this soundscape, those chords are deliberately kept open. They hang there indefinitely.
It creates a sense of perpetual suspension. You're holding your breath, waiting for a harmonic exhale that never comes.
It's exhausting.
And the textures layered over those chords were just as unsettling. The soundscape is populated with distant metallic impacts and heavy use of reversed reverbs.
Oh, reverse reverbs are so creepy. In the real world, an echo always follows the sound.
Right. But when you reverse a reverb, the ghostly echo precedes the impact. It completely disorients the brain's spatial awareness.
And the vocal textures play into that disorientation too, right? They introduce these wordless, ghost-like vocal pads.
Yes, but they aren't mixed prominently. They're breathy, delayed, and buried into the background hiss.
Which forces pareidolia,
Exactly.
where your brain tries to find familiar patterns, like a human voice, in random noise. You think you hear whispering, but when you strain to listen, it vanishes. It feeds directly into the paranoia.
But the crowning technical achievement of all this, honestly, is the global sidechain effect applied to the mix.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
The creator engineered the soundscape so that every single element, the drones, the metallic hits, the vocals, all of it, gently dips in volume in perfect synchronization with the invisible pulse.
The breathing effect.
Yes.
Sidechaining is that classic electronic dance music trick, right?
Yeah.
Where the kick drum hits and the software forces the synth to dip in volume so the drum punches through.
Exactly. But here, they aren't using a fast kick drum. They're using the slow, invisible sub-bass pulse to continuously duck the entire mix.
Making the audio literally inhale and exhale.
It creates an incredibly suffocating atmosphere. The synth swells gradually increase in presence, but because of the side chaining, they never fully break. They just heave.
So what does this all mean for the listener? It basically sounds like you aren't just listening to a song, you're standing inside the belly of a giant breathing organism that's slowly trying to consume you.
Pulling you further inward with every exhalation.
Okay, being consumed by a giant organism for 3 minutes is a cool musical trick. But this album isn't 3 minutes long.
No, it is not.
It's an endurance run. Which brings us to the staggering symbolic math of the album's structure.
The scale of the project is really where it elevates from a clever psychological hack into a profound artistic statement. The entire macrostructure is built around the number 7, mirroring that 7 hertz pulse.
And the number 7 carries immense historical and psychological weight. It's the universal number of cycles and thresholds.
Right, 7 days in a week.
7 visible celestial bodies in ancient astronomy. Across countless traditions, rituals require 7 steps. It's deeply embedded in our psyche.
And the creator weaponizes that symbolism by expanding it into the track list. There are exactly 77 distinct movements across the album.
77 tracks.
And here is the truly staggering part. Across all 77 tracks, through the entire duration of 3 hours, 27 minutes, and 37 seconds, that underlying 7 hertz binaural beat never stops.
It never drops out.
Never. It never modulates to a new frequency. It never changes key. It is an unwavering, continuous neurological signal for 3.5 hours.
Wow. So there's no cinematic crescendo to offer catharsis, and it never fades into silence to let you recover.
It simply endures. The source material describes it beautifully. The pulse is like footsteps echoing in a corridor that has no visible end.
That is haunting.
When you sustain a repetitive element on that time scale, the repetition ceases to be purely mathematical. The repetition becomes ritual, and the ritual becomes the atmosphere.
I have to ask a blood practical question on behalf of the listener, though.
Go for it.
As music fans, we are trained to want a drop, right? A chorus, a release of tension. Is subjecting yourself to 3.5 hours of always approaching, never arriving, actually enjoyable? Or is this just an audio endurance test?
That question really strikes at the core philosophy of the project. Is it enjoyable in the dopamine-driven way a 3-minute pop song is? Absolutely not.
Right.
But the lack of resolution is the point of the art. Your body recognizes the enduring pattern long before your conscious mind does.
So you're systematically denied that traditional musical release.
Yes, and eventually you're forced to stop waiting for the music to save you. You're forced to find your own psychological center within an atmosphere of perpetual uncertainty.
That completely reframes the experience. So to summarize this incredible journey, She Who Draws Near takes an 1839 acoustic illusion discovered before the light bulb, dials it to the exact neurological threshold of 7 hertz, and drowns it in 10 hertz Mariana's Trench sub-bass.
While layering it with band renaissance intervals and reversed echoes that breathe in time with the music.
And then stretches that suffocating dread across 77 tracks to simulate the feeling of being eternally stalked. It's truly a masterpiece of psychological engineering.
It undeniably is. But stepping back from this specific album leaves us with a much larger and perhaps more unsettling question.
Oh, what's that?
If an artificially engineered album can so profoundly hijack our nervous system, if a single 7 hertz pulse can dictate our emotional weather and induce paranoia, what other invisible frequencies are doing the exact same thing to us every single day?
Oh, wow. Think about the invisible acoustic architecture of the modern world, like the constant 60 hertz thrum of the electrical grid running through the walls of your home.
Or the low-frequency drone of the appliances in your kitchen.
The synchronized whir of server fans at the office. What unseen hums and rhythms are silently shaping your anxiety and your moods without you ever realizing it?
It's definitely something to think about.
It really is. Thank you for taking this journey with us into the dark acoustic depths today. The next time you're sitting alone in a quiet room and you feel that sudden chill, maybe you aren't being haunted by a ghost at all. Maybe you're just finally hearing the phantom rhythms of the world around you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.